Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Five Principles to Accelerate Your Career Growth in Challenging Times. I'm really excited to present this. This is a start of a tremendous journey for me, and really so happy that you're able to kind of come along and join me on this journey. So I'm going to kick off with a bit of an overview. So here is basically what we're aiming to get out of this webinar. The intention is that we're going to provide you with as much advice, guidance, and information as we can. It's to raise many of the challenges that people that I have worked with extensively throughout my career, people who I've worked with on a one-on-one basis, people who I've been working with from a group basis as well. The challenges that they bring and the resolution points that we also help them with too. It's also to introduce you to our Leadership and Life Accelerator Academy as well. Now, throughout this session, there's absolutely no questions that are off limits. I'm here to help as much as possible. So please put any questions that you have, just put those out into the Q&A and I'll be happy to assist. So, why are you here today? So what I've got is a poll. I'm just going to launch this poll out. And I'm interested to hear what brings you specifically to this webinar here with me today. Just give it a minute or so. So just select the best options there. So there's stalled career progression. There's unsure of steps for progression. No pathway for promotion. There's can't break into leadership. There's the prospect of the roles. Maybe needing to change a role. Or maybe it's just something totally different. And if it is something totally different, then please go ahead and put that into the chat, into the comments. Yeah, you've got a little bit of variation there. Few different options. Just leave it open for 30 seconds or so more, and then we will move on. Okay, cool. Right. So thank you for basically putting the things in there. So we heard a few things there of seen a couple on unsure of the steps to progression, which is absolutely fantastic for today anyway. I don't mean in general for your experiences there. But that is one thing for sure that we're going to basically explore and outline little bits there as well. We've got can't land a good role, little bits that are out of control there, but certainly things where we'll be talking about how you can bring things back into control. And the same for stalled career progression there as well, that it's about how you can begin to think maybe a little bit differently, a little bit out of the box and more kind of prepare yourself inside yourself kind of thing. So what is it specifically that I do here? So I've been working in the corporate world for quite some time, and I work with people in a coaching capacity as well. So I lead workshops. I also am part of an internal coaching program where I'm coaching people one-on-one. And what kind of brought this topic to life is that a lot of people are coming across the same kind of challenges. And I think for the last 2 years that I've worked with people in one-on-one coaching, it's the same kind of things that kept coming up and up and up. And I start to ask myself the question about, okay, so how can I basically help people on a kind of a broader spectrum here? And some of these challenges are like some of those challenges that you've noted there in the poll. It's things like the steps to get promoted, being unclear on that pathway. It's potentially about changing careers, maybe doing something completely different, or maybe just basically landing into, as we had someone there saying, about a role that they want to get into. There's also that transition into leadership. This can be a real tough one to basically break through into, especially if there's a lot of kind of competition, particularly as you get higher up the ranks and so on. Now, as I mentioned, I've historically worked with people one-on-one, but then also I've done group events as well. And this is where I kind of think a little bit differently about how I'm going to approach this. So I'll be talking a little bit about this throughout this session. So What we're basically going to do is we're going to explore some of the key challenges that I observe people are facing, both in their career and their life. It kind of spans across two. What I don't like to do in any sessions that I run is focus purely on career, because quite frankly, I think there shouldn't really be that separation between career and life. It should be something that you're so passionate about the work that you do that it just feels a part of life. Yeah, there's then the boundaries that you set around that to make it so you're not working every waking hour of the day. But I think it's really important that it's kind of looking holistically at career. We'll also be outlining about why it is essential that you resolve some of these challenges, and we've heard some of those points there today about things like being stalled in career progression and so on. There's also identification of the actions that, at least from the experiences that I have had myself and also those that I work with, that I feel that are missing, that could actually give you that little bit of a nudge to actually move you forward. And then finally, there's an exploration of a well-trodden path to success. So this is falling back on a lot of my experiences here too that we'll be talking through. So who am I? So I'm conscious that you've joined the webinar here. I haven't actually formally introduced myself, so this is what I'm intending to do here. And I work at Salesforce, and also I have basically starting off with a little bit of a coaching practice. So this is about how I can broaden the way that I can help people in the world, and this is through group sessions, but then also potentially one-on-one too. I've had up to 15 years in the corporate world. It's been quite a slog, but that's also meant there's been kind of lots of lessons learned throughout this as well. I've been practicing mindfulness for about 20 years and been a teacher for about 5 years. And this is something of a bit of a tripartite with me, which I'll mention in a moment. I'm an ICF ACC certified coach, which basically means it's probably actually more towards 200 hours of coaching experience. And most recently, I've done a neuro-linguistic programming certification, which fascinating techniques. It's about kind of really tapping into the subconscious mind, about basically limiting beliefs and the way that we form habits and so on. And it plays a really good balance into some of the coaching work that I do. I have a background in business leadership, coaching psychology, neuroscience, and this is kind of the tripartite that I mentioned. That I think when I'm looking at leadership, I'm always looking at things from a psychology perspective. I'm looking at the science that sits behind things like behavior. I'm also considering mindfulness and about how we need to be present in, say, the conversations that we're having with people, really listening actively, intently, to make sure that we truly understand and engaging the people that we work with. The vision for me is to basically simplify human development. And I'll come on to it in a moment about there being an absolute mass overwhelm and stimulation all around us. And it's only getting worse and worse in terms of the information that's been thrown at us. So the idea here is to basically simplify things. Nothing that I talk about in here as well is rocket science. It's not like you kind of need the kind of massive degree to understand any of this. A lot of it is kind of, quite frankly, a lot of basic principles that we'll be exploring today. So throughout my time in the corporate world and stemming out into the coaching piece, I've actually worked with a hell of a lot of people through different forms, whether things that are actually directly related to the work that I do, or if this is actually some of the coaching and people development stuff. And through that, it's trying to understand what some of the real challenges are that they face. And some of those, they're basically noted here. There's this misalignment with their work and basically their life goals. It's like some people are basically running two different lives. And this, quite frankly, can really lead to burnout. It can really lead to unhappiness. And it's this point that I mentioned right at the start of this session, that when it comes to work and life, doing something as your job that you are really passionate about, that's basically where it should be for you. Could also be that they're experiencing a tougher landscape for progression in the company that they work for. So we've heard there a few people saying that they're unsure of the steps of promotion. We've seen kind of a mix in this last few years. Like just as COVID hit, there was this absolute abundance of roles, and there wasn't enough basically jobs for people at that point. So progression was actually seemingly quite easy. But now we're entering tougher economic times. It's starting to kind of clamp down that little bit. And I remember seeing some posts on social media about things like this, of how whereas previously recruiters may have been a bit more flexible in their ability to take certain people on with maybe not all the skills, that's actually pretty much completely reversed. Also, many could be struggling to really differentiate themselves from others. That's linked to this. And it's really thinking outside the box in terms of how you have proven yourself and the skills, the knowledge, and the experiences that you've had. Is then the final one that I've mentioned previously, the mass overload of information. And this is really important because there's so many bits of information, so many courses out there for people to do. If we just look at the boom in AI over this year and the number of certifications and the number of products that have arisen, it's incredible. It's like, how do you actually maintain this and how do you get on top of this, for instance? So the question to ask is basically, why is it that we actually need to resolve these? So these aforementioned issues, they're really important to basically resolve because of three things. So the first one is about stagnation in your growth. So as an example, if you don't explore these, then chances are you may be getting passed up for promotion. Could be significant opportunities like new projects and things like that may not get passed your way. This means that basically you're potentially putting a lot of effort in only to kind of not get the rewards that you anticipated. It may not be the career progression, it may not be the pay rises, the bonus, the amazing projects. Basically, your career potentially ends up limited. The next side of things is then about this overwhelm. Keep mentioning this overwhelm. So, in an example, it might be difficult for you to know exactly what it is that you need to do to progress. And this means that you end up spending, once again, a whole lot of time maybe focusing on the wrong thing or maybe seeking help from the wrong people. Now, this is potentially a big waste of time. And basically, because of the amount of resources that we have in the digital world, it makes this so easy to basically experience this. There's then about the loss of control. So I'll give a good example here. And this is the promotion process. Is that if we don't really understand the intricacies of this process, then what we're essentially going through is an entirely reactive journey. And I think of the last three people that I've been working with one-on-one on the internal coaching program, this has been the hot topic for them. This has been that they don't necessarily understand the systems that are at play to enable them to basically develop and progress in their career. And when we really sit down and explore it, this is where things become really simple. And as an example here, right, it's, do you know who it is who is ultimately making the decisions about your promotion? Quite a lot of people surprisingly don't. Then you need to ask yourself, okay, so those people, how is it that I can influence those in the right specific way? Are there anybody or any other people down the chain that also have some kind of influence that feeds into this person? And this is about you taking back control of that specific situation. This is about you knowing that if it is a panel that you're actually going to for promotion, that you're almost guaranteed to get it. So what then are the actions that are basically missing here? There's a couple. Two key pillars is basically what I describe this as. Good timing for this session as well. I've started getting a little bit of cold and sore throat, so hence my little bit of a hoarse voice there. Okay, so taking back control. So these are the two key pillars, taking back control and basically owning your growth. So first, if we explore taking back control, there were three key activities here. The first one is about commitment. You need to recognize that the journey that you're embarking on here, it's not an easy one, but it has potential phenomenal prospects if you choose to accept it. If it was easy, you have to think that everybody would be out there getting the results. It's just you need to understand what it is that you need to do, and you need to commit to the pathway. There's then building discipline. So it's about setting the habits. This is the habits that will basically help success come that little bit easy for you. So as an example here, I run a lot. So you may be able to see some of the things at the back of me, the shirt medals things. And what I always used to do was I'd have a marathon event, and I'd train up to the marathon, and I'd get up to the distance, like 30, 34 kilometers and so on. And then I'd run the event, and I'd do really well in the event. But then I'd drop off a cliff in terms of the mileage. And it may be a week or two that would go by, and I'd not be making kind of the progress, and Strava scores would decline and so on. And what would basically happen, what was happening was I was noticing a kind of a real decline in basically fitness as I went through this journey. And then what would happen is another event would come up. And then from this point, I'd start doing the mileage and it would go up again. And I just looked at it after an event and I thought, why is it that I do that? And it ultimately came down to discipline. And what I decided to tune into was ultimately the reason why that I do these things, the reason why that I get up and run, and why it is that I do marathons. And I looked at my children and I thought, okay, so one reason is longevity. I want to be around for them and my wife as long as possible. And running was one way that I could do that. The other one was my mental health. Running helps me to detach from pretty much everything that's going on in the world. There was then also the kind of the discipline that I instill in the children. And this was really the biggest one. And what started to happen is that I thought to myself, how can I really have them see me exercising discipline? And we have a big window at the front of our house. And every single morning that I go for a run, the two kids stand at the window and wave me off as I go on a run. Doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's snowing, icy, bright sunshine. I'm out every single morning. I have one day off a week. And that is what really brought it about for me, the discipline. It was really tuning into the why that I'm doing this. And this is a fundamental thing for a lot of areas of our life. We need to really tune into the reason why we are doing something. And then that will basically make it a whole lot easier for us to go and execute against whatever the goal is. The final one is about self-regulation. Now, this is a bit of a biggie, because we really shouldn't be operating in reactive mode, at least the vast majority of the time. And I also, in the meditation teacher stuff, I teach a lot of mindfulness, and the reactions that we have to even the simplest mundane things, like maybe a social media post, maybe a text message, maybe an email that we receive from somebody. All these things are things that trigger us. And these are the things that if we're in a leadership position and we're responding in a reactive way, then that doesn't really position ourselves and also our team in the best possible light. It's basically, instead of seeing things and then reacting, it's basically learning to understand how we can better control ourselves. So how's this resonating? And please do, if you did miss at the start, just put any questions into the Q&A, and I'm happy to basically answer questions at certain points throughout the session. Okay. So we're now going to dive into each specific one. What we're going to do is talk about what the specific problem is around this. And then as you can see on the screen there, we're going to talk about what the solution is around this. So first, around commitment, the problem that I see. It's that commitment is scary. It can be incredibly daunting, because basically what you don't know is that when you commit to something, it's like you may feel as though this is a permanent thing, That when I'm committing to a certain pathway, maybe I'm committing to do a certain course, maybe I'm committing to a certain goal, that once I've committed, I can't actually change path. And the thing is, this mindset's actually wrong. It's like you can, of course, you can deviate. It's certainly one thing that I encourage is experimentation. It's like you really don't know until you try and potentially fail. You know, failing can be one of the biggest lessons that we can actually learn. Basically, without commitment, you won't become disciplined throughout essentially the new habits that need to be formed to help you to grow. So the solution here, it's about understanding the end game and basically building backwards from this. So if you think to yourself in 5, 10, 15 years' time, where is it that you want to be? And then build back from that end game. I call it a big, hairy, ambitious goal. Should be something so incredibly scary that you have absolutely no idea how the hell you will get there. And then you build back, you build the incremental steps. And there's the old analogy that's what's better? Is it one huge step forward or is it 100 micro steps? And it's definitely the micro steps where we need to be focusing here. That will make commitment a lot less scary because you can maneuver, you can change direction as you see fit. Also see it as a continually evolving journey towards that end game. It's not going to be a stuck linear path. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be sideways movements. Just try and play it out like a game of chess. Set the certainty in your mind. So when you do visualize this end game, when you do see this end game, explore it, play with it. What are the emotions? What are the thoughts that are going on? That will help you no end with this. So the brain often struggles to differentiate between something that we visualize and something that we actually experience. If you think about it, this is the very nature of anxiety, right? So this is the negative side of this, that what we're doing when we're experiencing anxious thoughts is we're feeling all the possible negative scenarios around a specific event. Whereas we can use this to our advantage. If we can tune into what it would feel like to achieve a goal, then that's where we can really use it to our advantage because we can use it as a driving force going forward to help with commitment. But the discipline. So discipline for me is around prioritization. And this is then around procrastination. So it's this inability to basically say, this is what I need to do, and this is why I need to do it. And then as a result of that, because of there being a lack of that, there's then this whole uncertainty about, okay, so I'm maybe not so sure about my next steps, or I'm not really sure why I should be doing this. And then that's where you may go off and procrastinate and do something that's totally different. And then a couple of hours later, you'll be stuck there going, oh, I've actually not made any progress. Or it may be that you're overthinking the task that actually needs to be done. I'm sure that we've all been there before, where we've thought that a task that we needed to do was going to be either so boring, so stressful, so frustrating, that we put it off to right at the last minute. But then when we did that task, we were like, you know what, that actually wasn't so bad. I think we've all been there at that point. What this basically means is that as soon as the going begins to get tough, people give up. And as an example with this, a prime one that is coming up, 1st of January. So what happens? People set New Year's resolutions, often around fitness and health. And then they don't really tune into the why as much. They just maybe think, I do need to be a little bit healthier. So they sign up to the gym, go to the gym, things like that. But then it starts raining one day. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll not go to the gym today. I don't want to walk to the gym in the rain. And then the next day, snowing, rains, icy, cold. Something comes up at work. Oh, it's okay. I'll just miss today as well. And then what this means is that they're just giving up as they go along. And there's this drop off that the industry experiences where basically the people no longer attend the gym. It basically, there's no hook into the reason why. And also, if you think back to the previous point about the goal, the micro steps, that piece is the key part that's missing as well. So with this, tuning into the why is super important and making it extrinsic. So, like me with my example of my children, the fact that I want them to see their dad going out for a run on a regular basis. So they see that as a good habit. It's basically the reason that I stopped drinking, because my daughter was asking me far too often, Dad, are you having a run with your dinner tonight? And I'm like, I don't want her thinking that that is the norm. The next part is about accepting that things will not go to plan. It's guaranteed. Guaranteed, if you have a plan, things will not go 100% to plan, but that's okay. It's not a case for you to give up. Learn how to fine tune what it is that you're doing as you're going. Now, a few weekends ago, on this with discipline, I was out with my daughter on her bike, and we were going around the lake near where we live. It's a good 3-4 kilometer distance around the lake. And she's 4.5, so for her age, it's a hell of a distance. And about halfway through, she was tired and said that she wanted to walk. So we stopped, took a break. I went down to her level, and I talked to her about how giving up now will actually be harder for her, because she would have to wheel her bike. I wasn't prepared to wheel a bike for her. I thought there's a good lesson for her to learn here. Now, after her thinking about it for a little bit, she just turned around, got on a bike, and she said, "We don't give up, Daddy." And I was quite proud of that, because that was just something that she's 4.5 years old, and she kind of got it. And we've used that as a little bit of a hook about whenever she gets a little bit frustrated with something, I remind her about that event and what she said. "We don't give up, Daddy." And I remember multiple times throughout that ride on the bike, she said the exact same thing. So, if she can get it, we can 100% get it with this. Now, I mentioned as well about self-regulation. Now, this is a skill that I 100% see lacking across the board. It's just incredible how many people come along to my workshops and find some of these practices life-changing. So I was having a catch-up with a friend of mine who's in the mindfulness community a few weeks ago now, and he talked about how at the start of sessions that he runs, he was a former executive for Hewlett-Packard, he would always do a minute to arrive at the start of every single call. This was just a minute where people would come in, and it would just be a moment of pause, just an ability to just take a breath, just create some distance from everything that is going on around them. And the feedback he was getting from people said that's what they loved about his calls, the fact that they were able to pause for a moment. And we laughed about it a little bit, because every single one of us has access to the ability to take a minute to pause. But the problem is people don't prioritize it. So with this, taking a moment to pause can really create the space that we need to just sit and think. I'm sure that we've all been there ourselves, where we're on back-to-back meetings throughout the day. And it's exhausting. There was actually a study done a couple of years ago. Microsoft was involved in the study, showing how people's brains change throughout the day as they're on back-to-back calls. And how, even if you take a short break in between some of those sessions, how that makes a difference. It impacts things like innovation, stress levels, even potential things like anger, frustration. And with self-regulation, so listening is one example here. The majority of people listen to respond, not to engage, not to understand, not to deepen the relationship. It's often the answers coming into the mind as they're listening, and they're trying to get that answer in there. Now, this, along with the shortened attention span, means that most of the time people are operating in fight or flight. This is the reactive world that I mentioned earlier on. Now, the solution to this is it's about techniques about how and when you respond. Just like the minute to arrive, there's this ability that when we're facing a stressful situation, we may feel impulse to respond, but we don't need to. We can just sit back, just listen to what's going on within the body, within the mind, and then respond. It's about listening deeper, more intently. It's about asking questions, not assuming. Reflection, reflection, reflection. So just ponder for a moment. When was the last time that you took some time out to reflect on your journey? When did you last sit and think about where you have come from? All the great things that you have done, all the things that you're aspiring to do. When was the last time you reflected on all of that? Reflection can be the key to our growth. Just taking the time to do it. So the next pillar is then about owning your growth. And there was two areas that I wanted to explore within here. The first one is about the mindset. So this is where people that I work with, they tend to feel maybe a little bit stuck, maybe distracted by a lot of things that are going on around them, maybe lost for motivation, discipline, as we mentioned before. There is then the defining the approach. And now this is definitely one of the fundamental missing aspects. I mentioned about people coming to me wanting help to get promoted. And this is one of the things. It's about defining the approach. It's understanding the steps that need to be taken to basically get where they want to go. I remember coming across a statement a while ago that behind every single successful person is some meticulous yet incredibly dirty and boring planning. Yeah, it's not exciting, it's dull. It really is dull. But it's something that is essential to be done if you basically want to be successful. It's like the pyramid that we often see of when somebody is first place in the podium. What is it that sits underneath this? We see their success, we see the gold medal, but how many hours did they put in to get there? How much planning did they need to do around nutrition, training, development, equipment, all that? There's lots of the ugly stuff that sits underneath it, but all we see is that gold medal. So with establishing the mindset, limiting beliefs, this is something that everybody experiences. And it's about how you understand them, how you engage with them, how you overcome them, essentially. So here's one from my career. I'm a solution engineer in Salesforce, and I remember in my previous role before that, I was a business architect, and my role is heavily business focused. Was heavily business focused. And I actually worked with some solution engineers whilst I was in that heavily business focused role. And they always tended to be the more technical people. So when it come to me changing up my role in 2020, a friend came to me and said, you know what, you'd be amazing in the solution engineering team. Do you want to come and join us? And no. That's far too technical for me. I know diddly squat about the platform. I've never used it, that kind of thing. I'm more business minded. You're like, no, seriously. There's people who are at this end of the spectrum, which are completely technical. They know the platform to the nth degree. And then there's other people who are more business minded, business focused. Like, yeah, you need to know the platform a little, but they have business conversations. And there's a role for both. So I actually had discussions with other people in the team around this, the team that I would join, and they said exactly the same. And there is people landing in the role, There's people who are highly technical, and there's other people who are highly business minded. And it's how you complement each other. Now, that limiting belief was something that I initially had, and that was preventing me from moving forward. But now I find myself in that role. It's fun. So then the next part is about being proactive, not reactive. So this is focusing on delivering value with an action-oriented mindset rather than sitting and waiting for things to happen. This is about you seeking out the projects, seeking out the initiatives for you to move things forward. I'm working with someone on the coaching program who he really wants to progress, really wants to develop. And we planted some seeds about how he could go and take things that are potentially going on in other regions around the world and bring them into his specific area of the organization. So it's like he's taking things that are already tried and tested, but he's proactively developing them and moving them forward. And that's how you can really make a difference. And the other one here is about independence to codependence. So this is recognizing the power of accelerating your learning by actually working in groups. This is engaging the experiences of others. This is you basically not being on your own. This is attending group workshops and so on. So an example here is my wife's business that she was actually experiencing some real struggles with the growth of it. She sells hampers, gift boxes, and things on primarily Etsy, but she also has her own website. And we realized that a lot of people were experiencing similar issues around visibility as her. And if you went into one specific group, because this is also about kind of choosing your group, you went into one specific group, people were just sat there complaining. They were just saying, I don't get this. I don't know why this is happening to me. I have all of this bit that is done right. This is what the platform tells me that I should be doing. My website, I've got a website and it's just not working. Why is it that I'm not getting orders? Whereas what we actually found was there was basically a mastermind group of people who, these were people who recognized what the challenges were, but then they were actively experimenting to basically make it so they could make a difference. And they were actively trying things, trying to improve and so on. And what's happened is Christmas orders, it has actually skyrocketed because what she's done is she's leveraged the insight, the intelligence, the experience of other people, whilst also she's contributing to that group as well to say, you know what, I've tried this and this actually works, or I've tried this and this hasn't quite worked as well. It's this that can really accelerate the learning. And in life, this has been one of my biggest lessons that, quite frankly, I probably spend far too much money on these things to basically join groups of people to accelerate my own learning and knowledge. So in defining the approach, it's about moving from bold to granular. It's important to set bold goals. We talked about the big, hairy, ambitious goal. But it's also important to make sure that you're setting the micro actions against them to ensure that you're getting those frequent wins under your belt. It's about emotional intelligence. It's focusing on the people skills. Particularly in this world of AI development, we're often so focusing, like, let's focus down on AI. Let's double down on that piece. The thing is, we need the human skills as well. It's about working on yourself. It may seem like this ultimately isn't contributing to the bigger picture, but seriously, this is where you can really 10x your results. I firmly do put my own progress and kind of some screw ups as well, but lessons that I've learned from those down to this focus. There's then accountability. So it's about recognizing that it will be absolutely impossible to get to where you need to go quickly without help. This could involve coaches, could be mentors, could be leaders, peers. You can learn from others a lot quicker than you can learn for yourself. This is about leverage. This is about leveraging things, leveraging people, leveraging their knowledge, insights for your own growth. So we have explored quite a lot today so far. So this is just intended to be a bit of a summary. And once again, open on the questions if you do have any questions, and I will pause and answer them as they come through. So I kind of explored from a coaching standpoint what I'm seeing in working with people, in engaging with kind of knowledge, insights, that kind of thing. So there's that stark misalignment in passion, work. There's a lack of real tangible progress. There's the fact that people are often struggling to differentiate themselves. And then there's this overload of information. This then leads on to these three pillars that we explored: stagnation, overwhelm, control. To resolve this, we need to commit, not be scared of commitment. We can always change, deviate path. It's about building discipline, one of the key parts, that even when the going gets tough, that we don't give up. About learning to self-regulate, emotional intelligence, developing those skills. Establishing a strong, resilient mindset, all whilst ensuring this continually evolving, well-defined approach. And that's where we come into the fields of, we are going to take back control, and we are going to own our growth. So we're now just going to move into exploring a path to success. So I've also given a lot of nuggets out here today. So I'm hoping that you've been taking notes on these. So these are some things, as I say, that it's taken quite a lot of time investment on my side to understand some of these things, but as well, these things being a lot of things that I do work with people on. Now, my aim here is to basically give you enough of a base to work from, but it's also to be honest and basically tell you the truth. There's an absolute mass of time wasting that's going on. It's people focusing on the wrong things. It's procrastinating, because procrastination is frankly the easy way out. Maybe even people just accepting the cards that they are dealt, just saying it's like that, so that means it's how it must be. But it's not. I have many, many debates with my sister about this, about how just because you think that it has to happen that way doesn't mean that it does. You can influence and you can change it. Things like not learning from others, having no leverage. Basically, this is kind of like having tunnel vision. There is far too much of a high-level focus. We'd rather multitask to get more done, because it basically feels like progress when we've got all these little things going on. But what it means that we're actually doing is we're focusing at a superfluous level. We rarely go deep. And going deep is where we can really make some real big impact. Attention spans, they're becoming ridiculously short. This is mostly thanks to TikTok. We're now into a generation where we're needing immediate results. And oftentimes people kick off when they don't get them. This goes back to the pyramid. And I mentioned the big results, the big rewards, they will never come easy. There's a massive work that sits underneath almost every single success that goes unnoticed. Pausing, as I mentioned, with a minute to arrive. It's something that is available to everybody, but they so often don't do it. Reflective time, it's probably one of the most valuable things that you can do. Just sitting, journaling, taking some time out, meditation, just sitting and thinking, going out for a walk, just getting some fresh air. We have a feeling of always needing to get things done, a simple assumption that we always need to be busy. But do we really? Do we really need to be busy? I was speaking to a client today about basically impact and how drip feeding things out to leadership is a really important move, because that allows us to kind of really dictate, really be in control of the splashes that we basically make. So when it comes up to promotion season, you've potentially got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just a lot of things, initiatives, successes that you can, as I called it to him, you're dropping the bomb. Rather than every single week going, oh, I did this good, I did this good, I did this good, I did this good. Final part is about people giving up far too easy. As soon as the going gets tough, they're done. I see the question there about, so what if you're stuck at the very beginning, not knowing what you want to do, so you can't start your plan to take back control at a crossroads in your career? So it's great being stuck at the beginning, or seeming as though you're stuck at the beginning, because that means there are endless possibilities for you to go out there and do. And this is where I mentioned about the big, hairy, ambitious goal, that and reflection that I just talked about. Just taking some time to really sit and think about what it is that really lights you up, what you're passionate about. Thinking years and years ahead. One exercise that I work with people on is about understanding influencers who you like, who you enjoy. It could be people who you enjoy watching their content. It could be that you enjoy the messages that they give, the impact that they have. That could give you some kind of indication as to what it is that you want to aspire to. And then it's about working back from that. Okay. So when I do engage with people, I work around these kind of issues that we just spoke about. But it's evident that there are truly one thing that basically matters that most people are missing. It culminates in what we see on this slide, but what I'm going to do is actually show you rather than basically talk about it all. Now, on this slide, we have several people who I've worked with. This has been over the last 2 to 3 years in terms of this batch. Now, they came to me with pretty much the same challenges that we previously explored. Now, what we did was explored what their present experiences looked like. We identified where it was that they wanted to be in their life, in their career. Explored the beliefs and the patterns that they was exhibiting. Outlined the resources that they needed to get where they wanted to be. Now, Katie on the left was looking to get promoted. She had previously been a manager, but she didn't have a good experience. She wasn't set up for success in that role, far from it. In fact, as a result of this, there was severe limiting beliefs that were coming about her own abilities as a leader, her perceptions of those abilities. Now, we explored those experiences. We looked at her vision. We looked at her past experiences before then, basically building up a bit of a plan for how she could land into this role and succeed. And she got there. She got the promotion. She landed in her team with basically a plan of action of how she can basically restart her successful leadership journey. And Rahana was overworked. She was working 12, 14-hour days. She was doing unsociable hours. She had very little personal time, no time at all for any kind of development. And in just our first 2 sessions, we explored together what her priorities were. And she came to me in that 3rd session and said, I've reduced my meeting time by around 60%. It's like, amazing. What does this mean for your development? She's like, well, I'm able to do these courses. I'm able to get this work done. I'm able to claw this much time back in my day and have things for me to go and enjoy time with my friends. All this was basically led by her initial perceptions around prioritization. She thought that she needed to be in every single meeting that was associated to her role. The reality was She could delegate. She could be informed in other ways about what was going on in those meetings. What we then did is basically worked on the path to a new role, which she landed basically after our engagement had concluded. And then we have James. So James, I'd actually informally worked with James for about 10 years. I was informally coaching him for some time in a previous role. And he's truly flourished. But one thing he came to me with was, and he couldn't explain it. He's like, I'm a solution engineer. I'm presenting to the most senior clients, C-suite, and I never get nervous. Perfectly fine. I can lead these sessions. I can do many of them in a day. But as soon as I present to my leadership team, I clam up, I stall, I'm nervous, I'm a bit of a wreck. And all that this involved was exploring some of the beliefs, some of the perceptions that James had about his experience there. And what he was doing is basically he was catastrophizing. He was thinking, if I screw up, then what that's going to mean is that I'm not going to be put forward for promotion. And these are the things, like, we make up so much in our heads that it's just unreal. Whereas once we begin to go, okay, so what is the worst case scenario? And then starting to dampen that down a little bit, that's where we can then really go and truly flourish. So as you're likely getting the picture, all of these people experienced the same kind of things. They was experiencing stagnation in their careers. They all had limiting beliefs, severe limiting beliefs. They had little to no firm clarity on a pathway forward whilst wanting the result. And I bet a lot of the challenges may be experienced by yourselves in some form here as well. Literally everyone I work with encounters these in some form or other. And what they needed was, one, a plan, and two, accountability. These then basically tease out the other areas that we spoke about, relating to things like commitment, discipline, self-regulation, and so on. Once again, just to pause, just any kind of reflections, how's this landing, just any questions? Not that one, that's fine. Yeah, once again, just put any questions in the Q&A. I'm happy to pause at regular moments. It helps me with my dodgy throat at the moment as well. So what is the secret ingredient to basically get through this? Now, I mentioned a few times I did a lot of workshops, a lot of one-on-one coaching. And I pondered on the one-on-one coaching of how I can deliver a similar experience that people get in this in a way that is scalable and that is also cost effective for the people that I work with, whilst also, as best as possible, guaranteeing the results that would be there for people as well. And this is basically where a platform that I've been working on came into play. And now this is an end-to-end journey around that platform. Now, through a series of live sessions, masterclasses, workbooks, videos, audiobooks, and more, all of these basically help the people that I work with to build up the commitment. They help people to remain on track. It's all while still catering for basically the seemingly busy world that we're operating in. The assets that have been created are around the experiences and challenges that I myself have had and that other people that I've worked with have had. What this basically is, it's a blueprint. It's a series of step-by-step instructions on how basically to level up. Now, in terms of this flow, whilst my coaches don't necessarily use this flow, my life has absolutely transformed enlisting in just kind of one part of this, which is the coaching. Personally, I actually have 3 for different areas of my life. It's about accountability. But for me, I've still had to build the journey. I've still had to build up the pillars. And then I've kind of grown from there. So what I've done in this platform is basically build out journeys. I call them journeys, call them accelerators, because in essence, what they are doing is basically accelerating progress. And they involve all of these things down the left. So there's short exercises to do to help to become clear. Like the question that was asked there about basically about the goals. This question is exercises to get to that point. And there's a blend of the mindfulness in this as well, the mindfulness meditation. So there's a powerful exercise where it creates the compelling reason as to why you need to do this and creates that real fire in the belly to basically say, this is my vision and this is why I must execute on this vision. Now, this that we see on the screen here is just one journey. So the idea being this is the blueprint, this is the step-by-step plan. The best part, this is only one of them. I initially only had one. And then I thought, well, career isn't the only thing that's important here. So there's actually another one on career. There's a simple one on career. There's a more complex one on career. There's one on mindful living. There's one on fundamentals of life. There's one on just life in general. Life leadership, I call it. So basically, what I know that we need to do, it's about exploring the intentions for the reason, basically, as to why you are here. And I don't mean just here watching me speak today, but here on this earth. Going back to the question that was raised, being at the very beginning, it's a joyous place to be because the world is your oyster. Which basically understanding what is your purpose, what's your passion. It's about solidifying the destination using powerful psychological techniques. This particular technique is called the Dickens pattern. It's about to help you to identify the patterns that are preventing progress, preventing that career acceleration. It's about defining new beliefs and patterns to enable growth. It's about building out the plan for growth, understanding specifically those steps that you need to take. It's about being accountable as basically members of a group for the growth and then embarking on a journey of continual reflection. This is basically what the series of accelerators are all about. And now, in addition to one-on-one coaching, I mentioned the group sessions, and this is just some of the feedback that we get regularly from some of the group sessions that we have. It's honestly quite humbling that there's been people say that some of this stuff, particularly around the mindfulness element, has been absolutely life-changing. So if you don't practice mindfulness, please, if there's one takeaway that you implore from today, go and check out some of the applications there. Headspace, Waking Up, Calm. I actually have a YouTube channel with a lot of meditations on there as well. Check those out because that is one of the things that has been life-changing, for me at least. And relating to this specific part, the mindfulness, data is really important for me because I want to see that what I'm doing is contributing and making progress. And in one particular initiative that I run, it's called, it was with a program called Search Inside Yourself. There's a pre-event survey. There's then a 30-day enablement period afterwards. And then there's a post-event survey. And these are some of the results. So talking about self-control, 53% of people said that they typically weren't able, well, 53% of them said they were able to pause before reacting. 77% afterwards said they were. When in conflict with someone, they take time to fully understand what is driving their perspective. This is about leadership. This is about you listening, truly understanding what the person is saying. 49% before, 68% afterwards, and so on. The data speaks for itself. particularly on this mindfulness lens, the initiatives help, they make a difference. So I flashed this process up before of the thing that I take people through as I go through. So the first part is about clarity. It's about understanding what is going on, what the aspirations are. It's about setting the intention, moving into that engagement space, looking at the inside that's maybe driving action. Some of the patterns, these are limiting beliefs. These are things that are holding people back. This is then the resources, this understanding, okay, so what are the things that you can do to truly accelerate your growth? Some people may take a mindset of not being resourceful. Whereas if we look hard enough, there are the things out there that can truly, truly help us. There's then the actual pursuit, the execution around this. It's the planning, it's the commitment, it's the constant evolution before finishing off with some reflection. And throughout all of that, that's where the platform can come into play. And just as we noted before, there's people who work with one-on-one. There's also people in group settings too. But I want to give a special mention for this guy here. His name is Osa, and he started working with me about 2.5 years ago. He was an apprentice within Salesforce. And the moment I met him, his attitude just shone through as being something I just hadn't seen before, particularly from somebody of his age. And this was that he was basically like a sponge. He wanted to constantly learn, constantly develop. He would constantly go above and beyond. And he won National Apprentice of the Year, as well as regionals last year. He's had some real senior engagement. The CEO of our organization from UK level has personally applauded him and given him awards for how he's performed. It's been an absolute joy to work with this guy. It's basically helping him through basically the process that was outlined a moment ago, exploring the intention, what it is that he wants to do, where it is that he wants to be. Then looking at the insight, the data, that's understanding about his performance. As everybody does, he had some limiting beliefs, and it was about overcoming some of those limiting beliefs. Finding the resources to help him. This could have been projects, initiatives, courses, mentors. Having him see what it was that he needed to do. What we then did was built up basically the long game. It's the planning. This part's currently in progress for his next level, which even though he's just landed in his current position, he's already looking at the next 3 years ahead. He's looking at promotion, building up his case already, even though he's just landed in that position. I said to him the other day, I'm proud of him, of all that he's done. And I wish I had his mindset at his age. So the process has been very similar for these other people that I've worked with, the ones that I've mentioned, Katie, James, Grant, Rahana. So just some things to add here to what's already been explored. These are kind of top tips, little nuggets. Lead with your big, hairy, ambitious goal. Break this down into frequent actions and wins. As I mentioned earlier, 10 small steps are better than one big, ginormous one. Celebrate frequently. Orient around emotional intelligence. Look at self-awareness. Self-awareness is so important in leadership today. Understand the systems that are at play. Try to navigate them. Try to map out, if you're going for promotion, who is it who I need to influence? And this is at the direct level, but then also above as well. And if it is specifically about promotions, how can I make it so when I'm landing in that panel, if there is a panel, that it's already in the bag? Ensure that you build a habit of celebration. to help you overcome these limiting beliefs. One of the only ways that you will do it. The limiting beliefs will almost always be there, but it's about how you respond to them. Also, to challenge them. Just recognize that these limiting beliefs, they're not actually your reality. And then finally get some accountability to your desired pathway. And that's where I'll come onto it in a moment, where hopefully I can help you. So in terms of an outcome, these are the things that we can basically help you to directly make a difference, make an impact. So as an outcome, the people that I work with, I teach them to stop reacting to everything that is thrown at them. Instead, they become more reactive, more reflective, more proactive, more reflective. They work with more of a strategic mindset, thinking ahead. They start to question their own beliefs and behaviors. Rather than falling victim, they begin to notice and begin to take action against them. They also build out a plan of action before then setting on a journey of accountability in a group setting. And they also learn the fundamental people skills that are needed, at least for leadership in basically any walk of life. So you wouldn't be here today if you were not passionate in some form about your career and life. Otherwise, frankly, you wouldn't be here. Personally, you probably wouldn't be on LinkedIn either. It's just sometimes we do get a little bit stuck, or sometimes we need that little bit of an extra nudge to help us to get to that next level. You know, this was kind of my lesson in life anyway. We can only get so far on our own. And the key thing here is that we, at least I hope that you take this away, is that you can fundamentally do elements of this yourself, but it will certainly take you longer. And you will probably hit a wall with it as well at some point or other. And this is where I reflect on the main coach that I work with. In that he's like on the sidelines, whereas I'm on the field. He's the one that can see everything, whereas I can only see through limited vision, through limited eyes. And that's where when I bring problems and challenges to him, that's where he can help me to see things a little bit differently. And that's what helps us to grow. So what I'm about to show you is for you if you basically want somebody to personally help you to grow and to accelerate key aspects of your career and also life. I never want to forget about life. I'm not all about career. So we have accelerators that have basically given the steps towards success. And then there is the group sessions, which deepen the practice and learning in vital areas. And here, the thing that I'm looking to do is to help the development of the emotional intelligence skills that are crucial for reaching the top and building a better professional life, but then also family life as well. It's about overcoming some of those limiting beliefs that have basically been stopping you in your tracks. Understanding the intricacies of personal development, and this is using tried and tested psychological methods. It's enabling you to take back control, recognizing that if you think that you're not in control of your own destiny, then quite frankly, you're wrong. Teaching you to be proactive and working to eliminate procrastination. So we've explored this flow before, and typically this is our engagement for one-on-one sessions, but this applies into the group as well. And here's the platform. So here's something that I've built over this it's been an exciting journey of basically since this April that I started this. And this is the ability that when you land into this, you have exercises, you have workbooks that are proven to basically help. I think I put that on a little bit too quick, maybe. familiar format, following a Netflix style approach where you get access to all the different assets, all the different workbooks, and then these that are coming up on screen now, these are the accelerators. It's the career booster, accelerator, mindful living. And then within them, this on screen here is the step-by-step instructions. This is the blueprint. This is the thing of finding your serenity. Here's a couple of exercises that you can do to find peace in your work. Unleashing your potential, doing things like bullet journaling. And here's the asset to allow you to do it. Here's a recorded masterclass where we talked it through. This one, overcoming difficult conversations with resilience. Such an important topic. So you've seen everything in there. This is continuously evolving as well. Currently, there are about 100 workbooks, journals, and exercises. And when I first started putting them in there, I thought, this is a lot, because talking exactly to the overwhelm point that I mentioned before, how would I cope if I was handed that many different assets? And that's where the journeys came into play. That's where the accelerators came in. This is the hand-holding. This is the blueprint. So there's a ready-made career accelerator, but as you've seen there, there's mindful living, there's life, there's general. I've basically simplified this. So going from a whole range of assets down to just a small number to just really focus. But then it's not only that. There's bi-weekly live group sessions, coaching sessions, where we're going through specific topics like you saw on screen about overcoming difficult conversations with resilience. There's then live guided meditations. I'm not going to underestimate the impact that mindfulness meditation has. And doing this in group settings is incredibly special. Every single session that has been recorded is also available as well in here. And what I'm actually working on is to go to the point about the overwhelm, is taking down the core principles and the core concepts from some of those masterclasses and the content and simplifying them to quick, actionable insights. Step-by-step things of, again, at a really micro level of what you could do. So as an example, this would be, here's 5 points for you to overcome a limiting belief that you might be experiencing right now. And the thing is with this is continually evolving. Like whilst there's these 100 or so assets, these 4 or 5 journeys, I actually have, I think it's about 85 different exercises in the backlog that are all not quite ready because they need kind of branding and things putting on them. But these are the things that can make a difference as well in additional journeys. Could be things like goal setting, so a goal setting accelerator, and so on. Now, as I mentioned, one-on-one coaching is the wrapper around this. I'll be honest, I'm not in a position to exactly deliver this at this point in time, but that's pending. Definitely pending. And I'm open to discussions around this too. So as I know, we've had kind of a lot of success. I'm really proud of basically what we've achieved, even though we're just kind of getting started with some of this stuff. And as we've explored, as we're approaching the end of this session, what I'm basically offering is 12-month access to this resource library, action-oriented accelerators. Not just one, but multiple of them as well that are continually developing. It's these bi-weekly live group coaching sessions. It's masterclasses as well around specific topics. Bi-weekly live guided meditations, plus all past recordings for all of these quick insight videos. And plus actually what I'm going to do, talking about kind of flexibility here, what I found really valuable myself is hot seat coaching. So this is where I would pick one person would volunteer themselves. And we will run a session where other people are observing one-on-one coaching. And there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from this. Now, what this is as an offer is $997 for the year or £97 a month. And quite frankly, as I mentioned, there's a lot in this. There's a lot of expertise. There's a lot of guidance. I think the group sessions alone are worth more than this. And quite frankly, after reflecting with my coach, this is an introductory price that we're looking at with this. And it's simply because I know that the impact that I make on people that I work with, it will far exceed basically the price that will be paid in this particular instance. So the last things before we finish, we just got a couple more slides, is what I want to do is basically ensure that the people that I work with, that this is as much of a fit for them as I am a kind of a fit for them as well. And that's why having a one-on-one session, a strategy call, as I call it, I think is really, really important. Because personally, I don't want you investing in a program, in some initiatives that isn't quite right for you, or maybe the timing isn't quite right, or whatever. So this is an opportunity for us to talk, to understand what it is that you need, and then go from there. So scan that, and basically it's first come, first served. I've basically got a few slots. I don't think I've got any slots this week, but next week I've got a few slots. And what I'm also going to throw in is that the first 5 or so people that book, I will also hand in a one-on-one coaching session with me as well. The first 5 subscribers will get a one-on-one coaching session in addition to this. So to summarize where we've come from, we talked about misalignment. We talked about a lack of progress, struggling to differentiate, overload of information, which then leads on to stagnation, onto overwhelm, onto a lack of control. But then we talked about how to resolve these. It's about committing to the process. It's about discipline, self-regulation. It's about defining the approach, being comfortable with it, being comfortable with the fact that you will probably need to change it. It's about the mindset. This then leads to you taking back control. This is then about you owning your growth. And this then changes. So we're aligned. We have progression. We have confidence to differentiate ourselves. There's less noise going on around us. We then achieve the career acceleration, the life acceleration that we need. It's like we're more composed, we're more self-aware. We're basically in control. So that's what my offer is. That's what I'm working with people on. Basically all of these things to help people through many of these challenges and to get the growth that frankly they deserve, that you all deserve. And that $997 for the full year of access to all of this, or $97 a month. So once again, I just want to thank you for your time, for attending. And as I said at the start of these sessions, my intention is that you take away, it might just be one nugget. Hopefully it's multiple, because I think there's just a load of value that I've thrown into this webinar overall. At least there's a lot of life lessons and career lessons that I've experienced myself. So I hope you've taken a lot away from this. And I think either way, it'd be great to talk. So make sure you scan that with your phone. It should lead off to a Calendly link for you to book some time with me one-on-one. And I would be happy to talk things through. Just basically understand what this could mean for you. So we're at the end. I would just like to answer any questions. So if anyone does have any questions, do you want to just log them into the Q&A? Otherwise, I wish you well for the evening, late evening, and hopefully speak soon.